Hey all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon and Brayden. Part 2 of our All of the Decks BCS season preview. We've got a lot to get to, so we're going to get to them. Alphabetical order, everything that's out currently, and then we'll wrap up by talking about some new stuff, and then we will break down the tier list. So we're going to start with Brandon on Ari Ferreira.
Yep, this is the same build that we've seen before. This is the two soul combo going into the bar combo. Big thing with this one, slamming the two soul over and over again, trying to get as much advantage as possible from canceling to be able to get the resources needed to have a pretty explosive end game. One of the things that's really holding this one back is that need for the reverse for the memory condition to get the combo going, but also realistically, Bang Dream is a pretty huge counter to this one. This one kind of relies on getting those big swings through and then building off of that momentum going forward to try to close out for a pretty explosive end game. Because Bang Dream can heal down pretty easily in that mid game, it can keep pushing itself outside of the threat range of Arifreta and also play into some of that game plan as well.
Arifreta lose to stock swap.
Ayakashi Triangle, Brayden.
So Ayakashi, we've seen both lists top, both the 8 pants list and the 8 standby list. Both of them play kind of a different game in total during the team league. Notably, this is probably the forerunner for the 8 standby archetype going into this format with the Quince hit. So very traditional 8 standby package, holds board pretty well, plays a very clean game, tries to get just good triggers, and then build up this nice big end game board where it could then dump all its resources into a whole bunch of burn twos. 8 pants playing a little bit differently, tries to set up the level 0 wall where it tries to heal a significant amount of times, and then just try to edge the game out potentially with a few burn ones at the top end. It's all right for the format. It doesn't have any particularly good or bad matchups, but I think it just gets outclassed with some of the anti-standby tech in the format, as well as the power lines on the Yuzus just not being quite big enough if you want to go with the 8 pants route.
8 stand by anything is just kind of tough to make happen in this format for a variety of reasons, and Ayakashi Triangle just doesn't have enough extra profiles, doesn't have enough extra text on its cards to find ways around that super effectively. Brayden, gonna stay with you. Azure Lane, set 2 is gonna happen. What's going on with this set?
Yep. So Azure 2 is looking to be a very strong contender, I think, coming into the later season, especially immediately after its release. Multiple good decks that do just good Weiss things that we all love Azure Lane for, lots of damage getting thrown around. Typically, when we see set 2, we kind of split into 3 different deck archetypes. We have our red sets, which are probably the least popular coming out of Japan, which involves 8 standby and then mostly 8 standby stuff and improving on that package. Unfortunately, didn't get the most love out of set 2. The stuff that we're going to see more of is 8 bar and 8 pants, or some mix of effectively the green red deck and a blue yellow deck. 8 pants notoriously is probably going to be the strongest contender out of a lot of the stuff that we have here today. Enterprise as a finisher being 3 instances of 3 just is a lot of damage to throw at the board on top of already having Azure's very good pushing game. Notably, it does not run cats, but to comp for that, they gave it a whole bunch of soul triggers on a lot of costless profiles. Notably, the Riki will have a soul trigger, as well as a level 1 twin driver will have a soul trigger. Very standard 1k1 play style, attack and go, not expecting stuff to live cross turn. Uh, Not expecting to like contest board or hold defensive counters. It's just strictly going fast. 8 bar, on the other hand, very similar, does have cats in exchange. It doesn't have as much of the soul triggers. typically what we're seeing is stuff like the old stock generation lists, and we're seeing this new Noshiro combo, this two-piece combo that generates a lot of hand just to go into something like the Shino no finisher from set one, or a restander from set two, or the classic just burn two from the trial deck.
Yeah, Azure Lane is primed to have a meta resurgence, and I think that the most interesting thing is the Enterprise finisher. Relatively cheap burn threes, extremely high floor and high ceiling, so that immediately grabs your attention. Brayden, we're going to stick with you because you know more about Blue Archive than either of us do.
Blue Archive, the list that we see most frequently is Pants Choice, running just the TD level 1 combo because it's just the most effective selection. Into the early play level 3 choice package. Uh, so basically, it's another one of the early plays where it will. So it's an early play, sort of like Ichka, where it has this big level 3 board that will then go and grab a stock and a hand. This one notably does it all on climax placement and both from deck. Uh, so very similar to like the Murons, the Ichka, uh, these other early play decks, the like Toph from Atla and the P3 choice as well. This package that we've seen show up over and over again. This is probably the best version of it. It swings in the biggest. It does all of the searches and stalking on play. The top end is underwhelming, but out of all the top ends that could be there, this one's probably one of the most consistent, at least. The Mika is a spicy tail that checks X on play, and then the icy tail cost is just ditch 2 on attack. It's got a good early play healer. It runs all these level 3s because it needs experience. And it's got just a decent card pool. It's got good defense, some like good defensive tech in +6 soul and -3 soul, so lots of soul manipulation on the opponent's turn. Uh, but I don't know if this archetype is quite good enough in the English format. If the deck could sit on top of either its level 1 combo for an extra turn or its sit at level 2 for the extra turn, I think it would be much better positioned. Unfortunately, I just don't think that the rated damage in the game currently is very conducive to playing these sit on a level 3 or sit on an early play board or sit on the stall board for an extra turn. I just don't think they're the best positioned to be going for right now.
Bochi the Rock remains pretty much unchanged. You're playing the salvage level 1 into the bar level 3. You can have 2 of the +1 hand brainstormers on the board to bring your hand size to 9. Level 1 combo lets you ditch 1, check 3, add any character you see, so it's very easy to have a big hand. The payouts for all that resource gen are fine. You can pay for anti-change counter pretty easily. You have a free heal, effectively. Free early play heal, which is nice. Ultimately, you're playing into the level 3 end of attack, pay 1, pitch 1, burn 3, which is fine. Like, that's maybe a little bit below where you want a finisher to be. You do have decompression tools, and you also get to cantrip into your finisher climax, cantrip into your 2-1 stock shuffle event. You have the half Fumio. So you do have some tools to try to make that 3-3-3-3-3-3 board work a little bit better, and you usually have the resources to triple this. It is very easy to tap it down. It is very easy to memory kick, so it does die to a couple of different counters. Ultimately, if this set had a finisher that could pay out a little bit better, all the resource gen from the mid game, this would probably be further up on the tier list. As it is, it's solid. You can definitely play it. It will definitely score its fair share of tops this season, no doubt. It might even, win an event or two. I could see it. It's extremely consistent. It plays a good trigger lineup, and it has a lot of good cards with good text. It doesn't have anything that blows you out of the water, and I think that's the difference between it and the stuff that is on the tier above it.
Yeah, I think Bochi fits perfectly into that. Like, if this is the standard at which your deck should probably be at, if you're looking to like win and top at a regional at basically every level of the game. Granted, I think the level one combo is actually probably a little bit better than some of them, but I think Bochi should be about the standard bearer for the format.
Brandon, Chainsaw Man. Are we still doing the Aki thing?
Always. We never stop. Yeah, basically playing into the advantage engine early, trying to play that advantage engine to get you into your end game. Focus a little bit more on healing in the mid game now with the bands trying to play a little bit slower game. But I think that little slower game is a little too slow to try to compete currently. I don't think you have the finishing power to be able to close out where you need to. Only with double Aki and then your off finisher choice of the day, you're not closing out as much as you did with the Icy Tails off of Aki. So I think you're playing into that advantage engine early. For the most part, you have it there, but I think these more consistent solid decks are going to step over you going forward.
Yeah, it really lost something when it went down to 2 Aki. Like, the finisher is just not as consistent, and the rest of the deck isn't as good as the Bunny Girl deck is. So, even though it's a very similar finisher, it recovers from its hit much more poorly than Bunny Girl does, and we saw that in Springfest.
Getting the events into memory, I think, actually costs quite a bit of resources that beforehand you could generate and rebuild back up more effectively. But I think you play heavier into the mid game now, and right now playing into the mid game is not going to be as much as effective as some other decks are currently. And so I think you're going to lose the mid game battle, despite being that's what you're trying to build in for.
Mhm. I will say, Chainsaw, though, if you let it spin its wheels or if you take too long to put it in a compromising position in the end game, it will probably outvalue. It can like sneakily outvalue and like end up in some
Mhm.
really gross states.
Guilty Gear is all over the place. The most common finisher you're going to see is the Ram Lethal. The mid game is any combination of things. You could be on a 2-2 standby combo, you could be on a pants combo, you could be on another standby combo at level 1. There's a lot that you can do with Guilty Gear. Ultimately, none of its finishers have this extremely high ceiling. You'll see the Eno from time to time in Europe in particular, but it's a weird set. It's hard to it's hard to narrow the focus on Guilty Gear. The thing with Guilty Gear is that it will just kind of spin its wheels, but the payout for Guilty Gear ultimately just isn't that powerful, and that's I think the thing that keeps it in check. Even though the packages are interesting, it has these really interesting and frankly fun profiles. It's a fun set to tinker with, but the power level on its best profiles is just not quite there. Like I said, you're probably going to see the Ram Lethal more than you see anything else, and it's an okay finisher. It's just not that good. Whenever you see Guilty Gear, you don't know what you're playing against. It could be literally anything in the set.
So, notably, Guilty Gear, out of like any set on this list, aside from maybe like Tokyo Revengers or something, uh, the more resources Guilty Gear can accumulate in the mid game, the more explosive their top end will become. Usually, especially some of these weirder lists that you can run into if somebody's really cooking with it. The more time you give them to set up, the like the apps like they can actually reach a point where they do have the ceiling. It's the question of did they play to their floor? Did they play to the ceiling? Because they have stuff like restand a character on an event that just procs and finishers that allow you to just keep dumping resources into them to keep getting more. Usually, what we've seen is more consistent piles, things aiming for higher floors but lower ceilings, like the RAM. but it's a set that you don't want to underestimate, but its resources are the thing that really hold it back.
Moving on to Hololive. Hololive is still doing Hololive things, but it's doing Hololive things in a way that is a little bit different than it used to. You're seeing a lot of different stuff now. Typically, you see the Marine finisher. That seems to be where most people are at, although some people are still leaning into the 2 copies of the Gura. You'll also see, like, Muna randomly. So, Hololive, another one of those sets where you have to pay attention to what's going into Grave so that you can see it. The difference between Hololive and Guilty Gear is that Hololive's profiles are strictly better across the board. It has better finishers and better level 1 combos. Callie is still a good level 1 combo. Chloe is still a good level 1 combo. Hanata is still a good resource engine that comes down early. So you have these resource combos, good resource combos, that you can then turn into solid finishers. Gura probably still the highest ceiling finisher, even at 2 copies. Marine has an extremely high floor, but maybe struggles to close from deeper. Tap counter, obviously a big deal. Every deck in this set should probably run it, so if you run into it, you need to be aware that they have it, because they should have it. It would be a mistake not to run it, I think, in this format. Yeah, Hololive will just find ways to resource you. It does not resource as well as the stuff that is above it in the meta. It is not as good at resourcing as Bang Dream. It is not as good at resourcing as Nikke. It is not, frankly, as good at resourcing as Bunny Girl. So, even though it is a, good mid game into explosive top end kind of archetype, it is that half step back from the stuff that's above it. And I think that is enough reason to kind of keep it a little bit further down in terms of expectations. It's still good, it will still top, and it's still popular, but it is a lot more susceptible to falling apart than the extremely stable stuff that you're going to see on the S tier.
Yeah, All Life can just do whatever it wants, whether it be Gura, Marine top ends, early play packages, Neg Soul. Like Sora is still a very probably still the best Neg Soul in the game. Uh in the format at least. You just gotta be careful around it.
Licorice Recoil, the premium set really gave it a boost. The blue level 3 that makes the finisher cheaper and more consistent made a big difference. You're still on, for the most part, you're still going to be on the old Takina Chisato finisher package. It's mostly a good cards deck. It's a good stuff deck, and the premium allows it to play into that a little bit more. It has a better early play healer. So its technical profiles got better, as well as its finisher got more consistent. The mid game's fine. It's fine. You'll still see the pants level 1, you'll see the salvage level 1. Both of them are strictly okay. One of them is a cigarettes, one of them is a search. So, whichever one you like better is fine. If you want to have the pants trigger, frankly, that might be the thing that like tips you to pants versus 8 salvage, but the deck is just more consistent now. It also has a Ricky with a soul trigger as well. That also happened in the premium set. So, premium gave it a couple of better profiles. Gave it a profile that specifically helped its best top end be more consistent. It's kind of in that Bocchi the Rock space for me, where it's like it's a bunch of good profiles and they work well together. Ultimately, the payoff isn't quite as much as some of these other decks, but it's still good enough where it's going to definitely top some events, probably win one or two.
Next up we've got Macross Delta. Mostly seeing Venus Link. If you're running it, this is kind of the reason why you would probably pick this setup, just to run the big fancy Venus Link package. It's unique, it's different, and to be honest, it's pretty good. For those who don't know, it runs like 6 different climaxes. It will basically put all but 5 cards into its grave every turn, and then proceed to just get a whole lot of free value stuff out of resolving the climax combo. Finisher is okay. It's got Bumio or Burn 2, so it's like not the most impressive thing. It mostly just looks to keep looping the package over and over and over again. The entire deck is resolving that package. The issue is getting set up and finding 2 copies of the event in the early game in order to turn on that package. Effectively, you'll have to pass your own floodgate in order to get this package. But once you're in it, it is very consistent. Nobody's running mill counters right now, so your only like real hard counter is not really in the format. If you do run into somebody running mill counter, you are probably going to lose on the spot, unfortunately. But nobody is running that, and nobody's teching for across Delta, fortunately. But deck's cool, super lean value engine, super unique deck. We'll expect to see it. It does perform quite well. Probably not a win, but maybe some topping.
Oshinoko is usually going to be an 8-choice list. Usually level 1, level 2, and level 3 choice combos. It's got one of the better spicy tail finishers, I would argue, because it happens on cancel. And when that damage is canceled, you can turn the bottom 3 cards of your opponent's deck into burn 2s if they're level 0 or lower cards. So I think that its finisher is pretty good. Obviously, it has the same like high roll, low roll problems of every spicy tail, but it's a little bit more consistent because it's targeting zeros, not climaxes. Its mid game is fine. Ultimately, it's another one of those decks that's kind of in the mid tier just because it doesn't do anything that's super, super special. It's consistent enough at getting its combos down. It does play into a 3 combo package with 8 choice triggers, which doesn't always feel great. There are a couple other things you can do with it. There is a standby list running around that runs like the level 1, level 2 kind of standby package into the level 3 finisher, as well as the pants salvage list, which runs the finisher that just shoves cards from the top of your opponent's deck into their clock based on their power on attack. No major blowout finishers, although the ceiling is obviously extremely high on the choice finisher. It's not going to be as consistent of a finisher as maybe you would want at the top tiers. It's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with this list. I don't think it doesn't always have the decompression tools that you would want. It does have access to some, but it doesn't have access to the suite of pieces you would want to maybe counter what your opponents can do at level 3 in this meta. It does enough to be interesting, even good sometimes, but it doesn't quite have enough to put it over the top to really, really compete with the Bang Dreams and Nikkeis of the world.
It is worth noting that the set 2 will come out right before the last regionals here, coming out like right before Sydney specifically. It's the one that's most notable, I think, here. With that additional set, just being able to get some upgraded pieces. We may see a lot more of it coming in towards the end of the season, but for the most part, we'll be seeing only through set 1 throughout this series.
Yeah, we're not going to worry too much about set 2 until we get much closer. Maybe like Worlds preview time, we'll talk about it. But like you said, it's going to be like maybe one regional where we have access to set 2, and that's not going to be for another like 6 months. So we're not going to worry about it for now. Although set 2 does give it a meaningful shot in the arm. Set 2 does meaningfully upgrade Oshinoko into something that is going to contest the top tables a lot more effectively than the current package does. All right, Brandon, you have gone back and forth on Overlord for the past 2 years. Now you tell me it's good. Why is it good?
Well, board removal is still like a pretty good thing to do, but also realistically, some of these upper sets have a harder time kind of recovering from losing back row, especially in that stage of the game. Right now, you're looking at Nikkei, who's trying to establish board and kind of maintain board and kind of basically dominate from that level 2 spot on. coming in and just clearing the whole stage becomes problematic and takes longer, may take longer to try to rebuild that. Um, Losing some pretty advantage time there, trying to get the resources needed for its end game. So like that's a pretty big deal. Like the list hasn't changed all that much. There was that ban list. There's been some workarounds around it, so like it's not as big of an impact as it could be. For the most part, the list is very much the same as it's always been, trying to bring out ions early as possible to get the markers into memory so that way you can get the burn ones in place so it can kill its opponent on the timing that it chooses. The longer Overlord has in its mid game, the more that it can heal, the more that it can really just generate the advantages to blow you away. And I think that Overlord has that opportunity to be able to just sit there, especially against things like Bang Dream that aren't going to be pushing maybe as much damage as it could be with very little soul triggers, or Nikke who's trying to establish its board after losing it all that way through.
Yeah, notably in the Bang Dream matchup, uh, losing your 4 more condition, like to that extent, really hampers their ability to heal, especially multiple times in a singular turn. Uh, it's way too expensive. It now actually becomes expensive for them to do that healing loop, and committing the 2-1 in the matchup also does not feel good if you know it's about to get blown up for the back row assist.
And this is where knowing the matchup is so important, right? Like, if you're the Bang Dream player, you have to know you're pushing up your back row, you're turning that into your +2, you're fixing so that you can put the board back in place when you need it, so that you can do the things that you actually want to do. So you have to play into the matchup. You also have to be more aggressive, right? Overlord is not a deck that responds great to aggression. If it eats the damage, it eats the damage, but it recovers from that worse than other decks do. So continuing to press that and put Overlord into a position where it's going to eat swings for 2 and 3 so that you can then just pop off with your big finisher. And also, like, if you can, like, play around, the board blow up a bit, right? Manage your resources effectively. You can still get into some of that heal spam and, get yourself out of Overlord's range so that when it goes to 3 and it pops off, it's not able to kill you. So, like, there are ways to play into Overlord if you have the good stuff, right? Or especially if you have something that's really, really aggressive. But yeah, Overlord is definitely much better positioned in terms of its matchups into Bang Dream and Nikke than it was in its matchups into the other top decks of the past year and a half. So Overlord is definitely in a much better position than it was probably 6 months ago.
Hmm. Notably, if your Bang Dream deck has the anti-change, the level 1 anti-change counter in it, nothing feels worse for your opponent than siding 3 lanes of your level 1 combo that can also plus to stock.
And there is more Shaken running around than there has ever been. So many things have access to Shaken now. So it's like,
Notably, both Nikke and Bang Dream both play Shaken counter.
yep, among other things that are up here near the top as well. So like Oreko has access to Shaken. There's a lot more stuff that can Shaken you now than there was a year ago. So you're right. And that's the other thing, right? Like Overlord can't be as aggressive in terms of its own damage push. Even when it gets the Ions on the board, it's almost sacrificing damage in the mid game for the big finisher, which is fine, but that inability to be aggressive leaves it open to then falling way behind and not being in a position where its finisher can actually like close the game. Also, free run exists. Free run has anti overlord, basically. It just is a free win for free run when it takes on overlord because it can actually target a spot on the board as opposed to the overlord Ein's thing itself. Aside from that, Freerun is definitionally fine. It's a bit railroady. It's doing one kind of very specific thing. It gets its level 1 combo down, it gets its events, and it tries to loop that over and over again. You're running 8 pants triggers, right? It runs a bunch of other like event stuff, right? It has event swap, things like that. Its finisher is very cheap, borderline free, because you're playing the brainstorm that basically turns into the finisher. Finisher also has like a cantrip on it, so you can go get your climax, go get events. This is another deck. I don't know how I keep getting these decks specifically. It's another deck that has a really good package into a finisher that isn't as strong as it needs to be to really contest the best stuff in the format. Hitch 2, Burn 4, when you have a finisher that cantrips, is very efficient, but it is not necessarily good at closing, right? Like swinging into a deck that is compressed, that is not going to close a whole lot of games. You have access to some decompression stuff, but when you only get to present 6 instances of damage, you don't always get there. So that's going to probably be the thing that keeps Freeran from being usable at the very top tables. It does have the level 2 event that is a level down stapled to a hand to stock. So you just shove the level 2 event into stock and also get to level down something, which is nice. So it allows you to kind of contest the bigger boards. It allows you to be more protected from counterplay because it opens up some siding opportunities, things like that. You also have the 3-1 stock shuffle event that also salvages. So it's very efficient. Very, very efficient. But does it get there? Sometimes.
Yep. Notably, on the TD package, you can actually more freely run the Burn 4 event as well, kind of increasing your range on that finishing package.
Yeah, you'll usually see a copy of 2-4 Burn 3 event. Spy Family, Brandon.
Yeah, Spy Family.
Are we still on 8 pants, or is there a different archetype that we're trying to work with this season?
So Pants level 1 combo has definitely been the staple of basically any Spy Family deck up to this point. We've seen some bar lists run through, but for the majority of Engine has been this Pants level 1 combo, specifically with the back row being able to boost up power, allowing it to sit 8-5 defensively without any backups, being able to rearrange the top cards of its deck to try to get extra climaxes in play and cancel on better numbers to try to live longer in a sense. But 8-5 is a little problematic when your opponents can step over that in every lane. Typically, you can defend one lane pretty effectively, but outside of that, you're going to be losing lanes. And Spy Family is very dependent on trying to keep its board early. That's how it generates a lot of advantage moving forward, and that's how it builds resources for its end game. When you're able to step over that and clear it, it's backpedaling the rest of the game. Whether that's trying to play into the uh, Mocha combo with choice, whether it's trying to play into the burn 3, cancel burn 1 with the pants, or whether it's even trying to play into the burn 4 with the salvage. It's running into the issues early in the game and then backpedaling from there throughout the rest of the game currently. So if you can stay alive, one, Spy takes that advantage and just snowballs that going forward. If it gets cleared, it needs a little bit more gas to close the game.
It also doesn't have stock swap. Its decompression tools are not very good, and its finisher is more expensive than it's worth. So it's an okay, like the 8 pants list, it's an okay finisher, but that also isn't helping you. The fact that it's a very stock heavy level 3 combo in a deck where you're already having to expend all these resources to keep and maintain this board. When you finally do get to level 3, it's like, oh shoot, I'm at level 3. Do I have enough gas? And the answer is sometimes no.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Spy's biggest concern is like fundamental to like the design philosophy of it is that you have so many changes that your deck just runs out of space like immediately. You have no room for tech, no room for alternative profiles, and you just end up with a bloated deck state, unfortunately. I think the package at level 1 is very good. However, you are really banking on 8-5 living cross turn with zero interaction. And that just doesn't happen right now.
You effectively are in a situation where you need to, in deck 1, mill through your deck enough to get your level 1 change targets into grave. You get 3 of your level 1 combo, you get 2 of your brainstorm, and then you go, right? And hopefully you have a counter in hand, right? You'll see usually they play the 2K back up at level 1. So hopefully you have all of that together so that you can play this board and then defend this board. If you don't, you're in trouble immediately, right? Like turn 2 is so important for the Fiona combo in Spy. If it comes together, you can farm advantage. If it does not come together, or you're missing one of the brainstormers, or you only get 2 lanes of combo, there is you put yourself in a position where at least part of your board is weak, and your opponent's able to snag back some of that advantage. So it just has to really come together early in the game, and if it doesn't come together, if you get flooded, if you miss something, the game can unravel super, super quickly.
Also, notably, you mentioned it. This is one of the few decks that will run the 2K level 1 counter. That can catch people sometimes.
All right, Brayden, Shauna, you like this deck, and there are good reasons to like it. Do you still like it in 2025?
Yeah, so there's one really big reason to really like Shauna, and it's one-sided anti-burn. 1/1 Yuji is the deck. Uh, I would say it was the deck, most of the deck. It still is in the deck. However, I do think that Shauna is still like a fully serviceable 1K1 pile. Uh, Pretty good level 0 combo if you're running the choice package, except it scales throughout the game. Procs from the back row, procs from the front row, swings in at like a big enough power line still to like contest these level ones that don't gain power cross turn. Uh, it has deck speed on it. It really doesn't have a good way to confirm and recur the climax, something like being a bar trigger. So it being choice and just relying on just choice with a climax swap can be a little rough. Check 3 brainstorm does help with that. Uh, Sits there, tries to heal down in the mid game, and then typically only ever goes for double Shauna finisher. Double Shauna finisher is actually good enough sometimes. Uh, but it's not trying to resolve triple. That's very expensive to try and resolve triple in terms of your hand overhead. But the deck is good. It's the big thing is this is the reason why you have a bouncer. This is the reason why you in Nikkei top deck kicking and winning board is so important. The just anti burn will shut down so many game plans in general uh, that it's still worth thinking about and teching against. Uh, Usually one bounce is enough. Notably, Bang Dream only plays exactly like one bouncer in its list. So making the board where they have to double bounce usually actually just gets you there and they can't deal with you at that point. You'll be forfeiting a lot of board state, most likely, and you'll be struggling to assemble that, but it's worth it when your opponent's finisher doesn't do anything.
Yeah, typically a bounce is a pay to effect and requires playing something onto the board, with some exceptions, obviously. But if you can get your opponent to have to pay for play 2 cards effectively, that's just good. Like that's so much that could have gone into a finisher. You could reduce a lot of finishers from 3 lanes to 1 lane by making them effectively pay 6 resources just so that they can get a burn off. It legitimately might not be worth it for them to do that.
Yeah. Uh, Notably, I did fight this in teams when I was on Bang Dream, and my bouncer went to stock. It was like my first stock or second stock, and I couldn't pay it out. So I literally just had to like sit there and hope and try and heal down better than Shauna did, and hope their finisher doesn't kill me. Fortunately, in that game, my opponent had a really bad low roll, but yeah, Shauna can it puts a lot of pressure on the player trying to finish with a burn effect. It puts all the pressure on them. You committed one card in one hand or one stock in one hand to basically turn to put a significant amount of pressure on the opponent.
Brayden, Tokyo Revengers.
Yep. Tokyo Revengers, it's still around and it's still the weirdest thing you'll fight all day. So Tokyo Revengers has a few things it can do. The scariest things it can do, one revolves around the dual lane package where it'll just generate an absolute mountain of resources incredibly quickly. Uh, the other big scary thing it does for the early game is it will sit on a wall of like 15 fives of 2-1 vanillas, and it will just sit there and will proceed to sit there until it's ready to go for game. So Podchen, definitely a weird thing to like kind of deal with because there's not much in the format that currently does deal with Podchen. Notably, Blue Archive does swing over it, and that's I think the only thing that really does uh consistently. Maybe I think Overlord Ainz can swing over one lane with the power pump. But typically you're not answering Podchen unless you have some really dedicated targeted out for it. Uh Top end, if they can amass the resources and go for the full play, is the most devastating finisher in English. Consistent kill range is 2-0 if they fully resolve. The whole name of the game is not letting them resolve. Uh, it's kind of a matchup check. Do you know what they're looking for? Can you side attack and then deny them the reverse with the Baji in the center lane as they go into the level 3 turn? Are you can you heal down to 2-0 and like really try and hold the 2-0 line for multiple turns in a row? Can you stock swap their giant mountain of stock and then blow them out of the water before they have a chance to even do their finisher? Stuff like this is the things you got to be looking for when you're going into Tokyo Revengers. Very unique deck, very unique profiles. Doesn't play Weiss like you do, uh, but it's still around, and you should still be ready for what it does.
Brandon, you've been fighting the good fight with slime for a number of years now. Where does it sit going into this format?
12-5 power. No, slime is uh, very consistently still the same deck as before. Having level 0 stock swap, I think, is really important going into this meta. Having a basically uninteractable front line is also pretty important going into this meta. And then throwing in +6 souls, kind of really interesting to try to help force cancels in very specific matchups. So like it plays the defensive game, it plays the compression game from deck, trying to squeeze out as many climaxes into its deck as possible by pulling everything else out. Slime is not trying to play into an explosive finisher, but rather trying to play the slow game in a fast meta.
Yeah, the most recent wave of hits on Slime definitely hit the consistency. I think the deck is still very relevant. Notably, I think Millum is one of the better ways to go about it. Uh, the it's annoying. It's really annoying when Slime decides to just resolve their level 1 combo and you lose a brainstorm and like an assist, or like if you see it coming, you should never have more than just your brainstorm out. Uh, but it denies things like it denies clean cut as a plussing level 0 option. It denies like JC as like a back row JC as a plussing level 0 option. The the ability to pop zeros, but yeah, just having that much spot removal on the back row on like the on the no-go zone, uh traditionally from Bushiroad. Decks usually aren't ready for that. It can hinder a lot of like say Bang Dream's full board condition going into the mid game. It can hinder like Azure Lane if they like field a cat in the back row, being able to just blow that up is a huge neg for a deck that notoriously doesn't like negging like that. Uh, so a lot like blowing up the plus hand size brainstorm and Bochi, the encore assist from Blue Archive. There's a lot of really niche things that decks like having in the back row that this deck just kind of is really annoying to play against.
The knock on slime will always be that it doesn't close. It has to be able to live from deep in level 2. And its best defensive option is the +6 counter, which honestly needs to be in every slime list. Like, you have to be able to have access to that. You have to be able to deny lethal damage. It's also vulnerable to stock swap, especially after the Mirren turn, right? Because it's just stocked clean and, it's in this position where it's trying to compress. So it can be vulnerable to a stock swap, especially, if you're Bang Dream and you have access to it at level 2, you could put them into a much worse situation. Trying to play something this slow into a meta this fast just does not feel great. It does have the hexproof board, which is really nice to deny things like Nikke's tap counter. But when you sit across from slime, you push them into 3. If you're sitting at 2-5, you're not going to die. So that's kind of the knock on slime, is that even if you just ignore Mirren, you can kind of just ignore Mirren and just shove them into level 3 and say, kill me, you won't, and they won't. So that's kind of the fundamental issue with slime at its core. Like, that's what's always going to keep slime from returning to high levels of relevance, is just that it does not close. All right, let's move into the new stuff. We're going to start with Dandadan. You have two options in Dandadan. You can either play Caligura, or you can have fun. The Caligura list runs like 3 dozen soul triggers. It's obnoxious how many triggers it runs, because it runs the level 1 combo. It's basically the exact same thing as Cali. It salvages equal to something with a level equal to or lower than the number of soul triggers you mill. It, of course, has a soul trigger. The finisher is also soul trigger dependent. It is less good Gura. On attack, ditch 1, burn 1, and then mill 1 if that card is either a soul trigger or a bar trigger, burn 1. So you're running an 8-bar list with over 30 soul triggers. So this is going to hit way more often than it doesn't. It's effectively burn 1 for ditch 1, which, hey, if you can get 3 lanes of that, that's pretty good. 6 burn 1s is not bad. Obviously, your ceiling is somewhat capped, but your floor is super, super high. That's probably technically the best way to play this. And like, you have, you've bar support and you have like the normal stuff, but this is effectively Caligura. Like, not to put too fine a point on it, but it's literally doing the exact same thing, and it's going to push damage over and over again, even more so because it gets to loop a level 1 combo on bar, right? So you're in bar, you get to slam bar, and you get to trigger soul 2/3 of your swings. I like this list. I think this list is it's going to be good at what it does. It obviously doesn't have the same finishing potential as the Shark, but it has very good finishing potential. So I like it. I like this quite a bit. However, there's another list that I think is just way, way more interesting because it's trying to summon a whole bunch of extra attacks to the board. You're paying 4 and pitching 1 to sack the level 3 Okaroon to summon another Okaroon to just keep it going, and you just want to have this mountain of stock so that you can just spam this kind of thing over and over and over again, and you're summoning these different Okaroons that can do these different kinds of damage. It's a very cool finisher. It's super interactable Memory Kick just shuts this off immediately. Tap Counter is horrible for it. Like, there are a lot of ways to shut this off, so it's definitely worse. This is the worst deck of the two, but it's very fun, and it's very interesting. I don't expect this deck to do as well in competitive scenes. I expect the 8-bar list to be the best in a competitive circumstance. But both these lists are interesting in their own way, and I think that Dandadan will have a place in the meta when it drops. Probably not a huge chunk. I don't see it. I mean, maybe it could. I could see the 8-bar list topping every so often, but I don't see it being super relevant necessarily. Brandon, there's a new fairy tale set after like 50 years of waiting.
Yeah,
Is it good?
you could almost say 100 years. But the 100-year quest is fine. We have a memory package that is brought into it, and a finisher that ties in with memory that can get burns for having memory and stitching cards, and then anti-burn on the backswing. So it has some interesting counterplay with that, or lack thereof. So it definitely provides a new look into Fairy Tale, definitely springs relevance back into the set itself. We definitely have a new, at least contender for a memory compression deck once that fully does come out. Uh, is the finisher going to be as strong as some of the other ones we've seen? No, but it also has the potential to live longer on the backswing as well, adding in cards that were effective from before.
Notably, being anti-burn on the backswing, you get to really lean into that memory compression that you generate. Uh, and then you can kind of like just bank on canceling the swings instead. Where before, if you were a memory deck, you would just lose to damage, like multiple instances of low damage, and then you couldn't heal because you spent all your stock on memory. This one, notably, no burns, and you have the memory, so it should be pretty solid at the top.
Gale 2, Brandon.
Definitely increase the threshold with this set as well. We see new both level 1 and level 3 combos coming into the play uh, with a little bit more explosion with those things as well. Uh, level 1 combo has the potential to double plus on that, which I think is a very important thing with that, adding to hand and also potentially stocking a card that allows you to pay for some of your more expensive mid game and upper game items. You actually have like a mid game that you can actually play into that does not require clock condition, or you can play the old stuff too. That's still a pretty valid mid game. You have the anti burn ones, which I think is still pretty relevant going into some of the different matchups along the way. Not necessarily for the stuff at the top, but just anti burn one is, I think, still pretty good. But the finisher itself has a much more explosive range with burn 2, burn 1. Definitely opens up a much wider range at the top to be able to stick that damage in multiple instances instead of just trying to go for burn 3s.
All right, Brayden. Last one, Machine. Is level 5 something that's going to matter?
So I think it'll matter, but I don't think it'll be that good. I think people will play with it just to play with it, just to see how it feels, just to have fun with it. In reality, I don't think the level 5 play or like living into level 4 play is quite as worth as it reads. It's a novelty idea. Uh, in general, what I think we'll see more of is we'll see that pants top end, but just as a burner. Uh, just very standard burn 2 on it. Like the pants trigger is actually really good in a list like that. Other than that, what we've been seeing out of Japan a lot is the bar top end, as well as I believe the choice top end. So lots of unique stuff. People are playing with it a lot. Can kind of scale with how many resources it gets throughout the game. The more resources it has, the more it can go for. Notably, uh, if this set had a second standby climax, it would be a really strong 8 standby deck, but it doesn't. This is a 1 standby set. It does have, I don't know if you two are familiar with the old key deck from Japan, but the events, the little gnome event thing from that key deck is quite strong. Uh, Basically, it's a 1-0 counter event. It mills 3. Uh, it stocks 1 and then mills 3. And then if all 3 of those cards are characters or the event, it will stock another one. So it's it's like a hand to stock that can also stock a second card for some deck speed. Uh, the set does have that, and that lets you really fund a lot of your stock thresholds. Bar top end is Mocha, with like accelerate burn 1 that you can give, that you can get based off an event. Uh, so lots of stuff to play with, lots of novelty stuff here. Uh, Level 1 combo with the Soul Trigger, I believe, for one of these, or it's like, yeah, like both the choice has like, yeah, lots of stuff to play with. We should see some of it. I don't know if it's going to be the top tier, but it will be around.
All right, so let's bring this home by looking at a tier list. This is a tier list that we made based off of the community tier list options. And basically, we kind of decided that there is an S tier that we're all in agreement on. Then there's an A tier. And then there's kind of everything else, with a couple of like middling exceptions there in the B tier. But this feels like a much more narrow pyramid of a tier list than it has in years past, where it's like you have a few things that are really relevant, and then everything else is really playing catch up. Bang Dream Nikkei obviously 1 and 2, and I think that we are in agreement that Bang Dream is number 1 irrespective of finisher. Like both finishers are good, both finishers are good enough that you can play either one and you are playing the best deck in the format. Nikkei, obviously extremely good. A tier is where we start to have like the conversations. It's like, okay, so what's third? I don't know if the what's third question has a meaningful answer because I really think this is a 2 deck format until Bang Dream and Nikkei get hit. I don't think anything else is like really, really pushing like that. But yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I'm comfortable with Overlord at the top of A tier because I just look at Overlord and I see how fragile it is. But it does have good matchups into Bang Dream and Nikkei by comparison. So I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
Notably,
And
we were all at Chicago regionals, and we all saw Bunny Girl perform very strongly
mm,
at Chicago post hit. Uh,
yeah,
it's probably Bunny Girl is probably the best answer as your third place.
I think
Until we
so.
see something like Azure come out or something like that.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. His Bunny Girl is number 3. Um, I like the rest of these 1K ones on the A tier for the most part. Like Hololive is fine. I like Oreko. I think like Oreko has something. Like I don't believe in slime. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't believe in slime. I do believe in Azure Lane. I think Enterprise is really good. It's a lot of good 1K1 stuff that has, good tech, good tools. That's what most of A tier is. And then the B tier is like the two that are kind of trying to straddle that line. I would have Bochi in A tier personally. Um, but I get why. Like the ceiling on the top end is not amazing. And then there's Gun Gale, which is like definitionally fine. I think Gun Gale is kind of like your bare minimum. Like if you want to be competing to top at a regional, I think your thing has to at least be better than Gun Gale. And Gun Gale's kind of like right on the bottom of like the competitive, that competitive line. But yeah, and then everything else. honestly, order C through E any way you like, because I don't know how much it matters. This stuff will randomly top from time to time when, a really good player gets their matchups and plays it well, but they're not gonna be at top tables for the most part. I don't know, Brayden, what sticks out to you on this tier list? We'll go to you first, and then we'll kick it over to Brandon.
Sure. I do think this format, yeah, I do think that Bang Dream and Nikkei are the top two. However, I think that in terms of they're not exactly boogeyman deck in the format. I don't think there's anything super oppressive or egregious in this format. I think Bang Dream is overtuned, and I think Nikkei is well positioned and does a lot of really good stuff. But I don't think there's anything that's like I think Bang Dream should get hit, and then that's like I think everything else is like right where it needs to be in terms of power level. Uh, I think the format's actually quite balanced overall, actually, with the exception of Bang Dream just being the best thing. I think most of the stuff here is pretty like in terms of like power level, like you're not sitting here like Bang Dream doesn't do anything that like feels super like unfun to play against. It's not stopping you from playing your game. It's not blowing up your stuff. It's just doing more resources than you are. And that's the end of the day of what it's got going on.
Yeah,
Nikkei honestly doesn't feel like bad like say like fighting into Overlord I'd say feels worse than fighting into Nikkei. Uh just because they touch your board in ways that don't feel like fun or good. Uh I think the format in terms of power level is actually like pretty good. I don't think the gap between S and A is like as wide as it's been in the past. Uh and I do think that at least a lot of the stuff below like in the A tier, in the B tier, in the C tier, I think all those decks have reasons to be played. It's just sometimes that reason is not good enough over the reason to be playing something like a Bunny Girl, a Nikkei, an Overlord, or a Bang Dream. So that's my take on the list this time around. I think anything C or higher in this list in particular, I think you can bring and not feel terrible. I don't. I won't like. I won't look at anything C or anything in the C tier and be like, okay, I can disrespect it as a way of saying it. Once you start getting to like the D tier and the E tier, it's like okay, there's like one thing I have to look out for, or I have to like check or read some cards, and then and then maybe it's like okay, I can just spin my wheels and kind of just be a better deck at that point.
Brandon, what about you? Where are you at?
I think we saw a lot of the expected tops in regards to like I think we're gonna see a lot of Bang Dream. Bang Dream's still gonna be really relevant, and Bang Dream's still gonna be very impactful throughout until the time that there will be the likely ban list will happen. But I think even until that, because of I think Bang Dream's not necessarily, as you said, like oppressive in regards to like it's not stopping decks from doing their thing, whereas like some like top meta contenders have been in the past, where all of a sudden you're forced to change your deck because of the deck itself. Bang Dream is just a bunch of really good cards all at once. It's like 50 really good cards, and those really good cards have additional text on top of it too. I think that it's not as meta warping in that way that some decks have been. So I think like you're able to find a lot of value in some of these other decks as well and be able to take that value pretty far. So I think we'll see a lot of variance in that kind of like X2 and up range where we might see more consistent finishers of making it all the way.
Notably, uh, a big reason why I think that we see a lot of Bang Dream and Nikkei and Bunny Girl for that matter is that these are standalone sets. We mentioned this in the last video. Uh, these are one set to buy decks. I only need to buy the Ave Musica set to have Bang. I only need to buy Nikkei to have Nikkei. I only need Bunny Girl movie to have the whole Bunny Girl deck. It's very easy to buy these decks without prior investment, as opposed to something like Slime, where I need to find TDs for the Remarus, or like Hololive, where I need to pick up stuff from like three different sets of support. Or Overlord was a little bit nicer, but again, it still needs set one stuff from a set that wasn't opened a significant amount, and that skews how much of a set you'll see.
When we put this together, we were talking pretty much about strength. Like we weren't this wasn't a meta share tier list. This was a strength. Like is the how do we feel about the deck itself ranking? And seeing up near the top of this tier list stuff that is extremely popular or was easy to acquire recently, right? So like you could just get your playset of Bang Dream, playset an EK, playset of Bunny Girl movie, and you're in. Hololive's super popular, right? Just a super popular IP, and the people who have Hololive still have it, right? There's a lot of popular stuff that's still good, or at least relevant. When we were talking about how we thought half of the room would be Bang Dream Nikkei, we went to Chicago, and I think that pretty much paid out. I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe less Nikkei, more Bang Dream. Like a third of the room had to be Bang Dream. That's the way it felt. Bang Dream was everywhere, and there was also a lot of Bunny Girl, right? So like probably between 50 and 60% of your rounds are going to be if you went to a tournament this weekend, which obviously there isn't one. It's just Chicago that just happened, and we're going to talk about that next time. But if you went to a major tournament this weekend, you're going to run into, of your 7 rounds, you're going to run into 2 Bang Dreams, a Nikkei, and a Bunny Girl, probably. Like just based strictly off of representation. And if you're winning games early, you're going to run into even more Bang Dream, Nikkei, Bunny Girl down the stretch. You'll see some Overlord, right? The people who have Overlord are still able to play Overlord. You'll see some Lyco Reco, in part because Lyco Reco wasn't, super expensive to pick up at one time.
Notably, there was a lot of Bochi in Chicago at the X1 table, going into like round 4 and round 5.
Another set that, you know, a one set investment, pretty easy to pick up at one point, and I still don't think it's super expensive, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so like a lot of accessibility, which is good, right? Like then this is something that we've been, talking about for years is like how we want this game to be accessible. It feels like the best decks in the format are accessible. You can build the Nikkei deck, single it out for like less than $50. Like Nikkei is impossibly cheap right now. So still that's gonna influence what you see more than just like the tier list proper. Like you're gonna see way more Bunny Girl than you will Overlord, even if Overlord is higher on this tier list, which I think after Chicago, we would probably flip those two. One more quick thing about this tier list. We threw Kaguya and Dal on the bottom tier just because they got unbanned. Don't play those. They're not good.
Wait for Data Live Volume 3 to come to English before you start picking up Dal again.
Yeah, not in a good spot. These are not in a good spot. Don't try to play these right now. Finally, last question for both of you. If you had to play something that we didn't talk about today, what would you be playing? Other than obviously the stuff we talked about last time.
I would probably bring a Dengenki pile. Probably like 8 salvage Dengenki, which is still the Shauna finisher, but the whole rest of the deck's different at that point.
Yeah, close enough. You're good. That counts.
I think Nixel's still interesting, especially going into Bang Dream specifically. Um, and if a majority of the room is going to be Bang Dream, I think having some kind of Nixel makes it a little more challenging for them. So I actually would probably go with Data Live, that even though we just talked about it briefly, just because it has some tools, it just wouldn't be that 8 standby build.
Yeah, notably, I'm historically the guy who has brought 8 bar Data Live and succeeded where others have not with that. But yeah, it's a deck that struggles into certain matchups. I don't know if it has an answer for Nikkei ever. So
The answer for me, I mean, the answer for me is always 8-bar Dragon Maid, so that's cheating. But if I couldn't answer with that, I would say there's some stuff in Project Sakai that I like. I don't I don't know if the 8 standby list is where I'd end up, but it would probably be in Project Sakai. It has enough good profiles where I think that you can do something. 8 standby is just in such a tough spot right now. So I don't know if I could bring myself to do the standby thing with Project Sakai, but I think there's enough stuff in the set where you could break something fun.
notably, 8 Standby Project Sakai is a unique deck. Unfortunately, like you said, 8 Standby is just kind of not where it's at. But the we didn't talk about Project Sakai as like a new set and that you could see. Unfortunately, I think it's just too old and waiting for set two
Yeah.
before it can really start doing too much. Also on this tier list, we didn't mention just shout outs about JoJo. Uh, Trait hate and name hate can be relevant. The both of them are relevant into Bang Dream. Name
Yeah.
hate in particular, shutting off both changers for the level 1 and level 3 for changing. Trait hate can hit Nikkei, I believe, as well as name. Both those, yeah, it shuts off tap counter.
Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back with another video next week, and we'll be talking about Chicago on our next Clock Talk. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.
See you.